Call the meeting to order. George, take roll.
Colonel Evans?
Here.
Mr. Grozan?
Here.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Mr. Naso?
Here.
All present.
Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
District goals. Every board meeting, we repeat the district goals. The first goal is student achievement. That's what all the other goals are pointed at. That's what our main focus is. That's what we do. The second goal, financial prudence. That's where we try to maximize every tax dollar and turn it into the most powerful educational tool that we can. And the third is community engagement. We utilize our community on a regular basis to help us augment what we can't buy and use their talent for things that are just incredible, and all their donated hours and time. It's great. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Brings us to public comment. We have none. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Naso. To start off, we're going to start, I'm going to ask Steve Breckner to come up to the podium. As the board is well aware, and the community, as we've shared, Steve brought a proposal, and we've been able to put video cameras on all of our school buses. As we talked about at that time, the second phase was looking at GPS on our school buses and other district vehicles. So today, Steve's going to start the discussion on GPS on our school buses and district vehicles, and he'll take it from there. Steve?
Good evening, everyone. So I provided with you a packet of some of the information I've been able to gather, and that's helping me with the decision-making process so I can present in a few weeks to you a number, a company, and an agreement for us to, with your approval, begin to install GPSs on the buses. The reality of it is that this is another phase in getting our fleet into the 21st century, giving us more information, giving parents more information regarding the buses, regarding the routes, and I feel it's something that's needed on our buses, just like I felt that the cameras were needed on our buses. You'll have in your packet 3 companies that we've been looking at, and what you'll see through them all is that we've priced out something called active GPS. So and I won't stay too long in this point because it interests me more than many other people, I assume, but you have what's called passive GPS and active GPS. Right now, passive GPS is basically like our cameras on our buses. The information is getting recorded, but we have to go and download that information in order to get it, analyze it, and make use of it. That's passive GPS. It just sits there and records, and then whenever you go to it, then it gives you the information. What I'm going to be proposing to you in those quotes is something called active GPS. That is the one that's constantly reporting back to a network, a site that we're going to have access to, where the buses are at in real time, if there's any issues on the buses in regards to any kind of maintenance issues that need to be addressed immediately or in the near future. It will also allow us to push out an app that parents can have real-time communication to figure out where the bus is at, if the bus is running late. And with that piece, we can also push out in real time to parents if there's any kind of deviation from the scheduled route. I know we do have capabilities right now in a limited way with something called School Messenger that we have, and it's the same messaging program that Cameron uses whenever he sends out messages to the community. The limitations with that is we have to access it, go in, pick and choose the buses, and it takes a little while. It's a little time consuming to do that. And if we were talking about having to update all 65 routes, that would take a lot of phone calls, a lot of time away from the office. This app is very expedient in the way that that not only the office can get out the information, but parents can retrieve the information in text messages and alerts on their cell phones if they provide that. So I am going to be presenting to you active GPS on these buses. I'll be presenting to you that we do need to purchase a system that has a parent app so we can get that level of communication to our parents. And also, this will be installed not only on our buses, but also on any cars that the district owns, including maintenance, and we do have a mechanic's truck, that's a tow truck, that's being utilized. So this would cover all of those vehicles.
So I have a question. I guess the notification to the parents on the buses, is that, so then for each bus, would you establish a schedule at each stop, and then a deviation from that stop would trigger some type of messaging? Or is it more the bus driver would have to indicate, or you would have to look at, someone would have to monitor the bus and say that that the bus is running late, and then send out some kind of notification? Or would the parents simply be tracking the bus to see where it's at?
So what would happen is we would have to integrate our routing software and this GPS software. So no, there's nobody sitting there tracking it and saying, oh, they're 5 minutes late. The system will actually trigger that and update on the app itself. It's intuitive, where it realizes where the route is supposed to go. It will find out when it's supposed to go from here to there, and if there's any deviation from that, it will automatically alert parents that there's some kind of deviation. So you don't need to have anybody sitting there watching it. Depending on the app, some of the aspects are cookie cutter and some are proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the app we would go with is if a parent can actually see it, like a little school bus on the road going through. Others aren't necessarily that detailed. It more or less alerts parents, almost like you would have at an airport, of when the destination is, and that time would change if the route for some reason deviated, and the estimated time of delivery at the stop would change. So it really is proprietary to the different apps I've seen. But no, there's no one sitting there uploading that. A lot of it's intuitive between the two programs communicating with one another.
Do any of the programs that are offered interface with real-life traffic? So if there's an accident someplace, then it would reroute the bus? Or is that still human has to go, oh, there's trouble up ahead, I have to go a different way?
So when I've talked to the salesmen, they're saying yes. I have to ask a few more questions to make sure that yes is exactly a yes for your question. I do know that if there is an accident and we're made aware of it, it will show up on the map. Now, whether or not the app itself will update and do a diversion, I believe that's still up to us, that we're going to have to say, all right, these buses in this area, there's an accident, you need to divert right now. That would also help us, and thank you for the question, that would also help us because I've listened to the radio when we do have those incidents happen, and it really is kind of a mass, hey, everybody, just be aware. And then, of course, there's chatter back. And every time that there's that chatter back, it takes up the radio for if there was an incident that actually needed more attention than just the acknowledgement. So there is an aspect of it with the traffic that we could reroute buses very quickly, very efficiently around, rather than putting out this general announcement and then relying on the bus drivers to, number one, hear it, and number two, be able to go around it in a timely fashion. We can give them some more direction than what they have currently.
Steve, two questions. I think that would probably depend on if there's any kind of feedback mechanism or screen in the bus for the bus driver to see, like on Waze, if you could see where the accidents are. And the second thing is I would like you to cover, and maybe this is something you've talked about with Cameron, the management advantages of installing the system on the buses. How does it help us better manage the fleet, and what does it do for us in terms of that? What's the trade-off between the cost versus the benefit?
Okay, sure. So to your first question, and you'll see in the proposals, there is an add-on for a tablet that would basically look like be a larger screen than the old navigation systems you would have in your cars, the Garmin's and all of that type of stuff. That is an add-on. I don't think we're ready for that yet, so that drivers wouldn't see the navigation. They wouldn't have that screen in front of them at this point. That's not what I'm proposing. However, there is the capability of doing that down the road if we felt it was necessary, or we were able to get the funds available to do that. To your second question, I think on a lot of different levels, some of which I've already said, I think it is an important piece that we need to put on our buses. The first one I've talked about, the parent access. As a parent in this district, I do know what it's like to wait on a bus, for a bus, and to get that phone call from my wife of where exactly is the bus right now. I think this app would help alleviate some of those concerns. I know those may not have been concerns when we were in school, but the world's a bit different when it comes to parents wanting that communication piece. They want that instant communication. They want to know exactly where that bus is and what time that bus is going to be there. I can tell you it will take care of a lot of complaints that we have the first few weeks of school, if not throughout the year. If we were able to give parents more timely feedback, more timely information of where exactly the bus is. So from the parent standpoint, I would say it is necessary. It is something I believe we need to do. The second aspect would be from the bus driver's point of view. We do have complaints that happen time to time of bus drivers are driving too unsafe. They're going over the speed limit. They're taking turns too tight. They didn't stop for my child long enough. All of that would be on a GPS and would be information that we could see that's being recorded. Not only can we see it in live, but we can also backtrack and see where that bus has been and what they were doing. That would help alleviate some of those concerns and some of those complaints. So for a bus driver, there is another layer of peace of mind that they're doing their job correctly. From the management point of view, there is also some advantages. We are able to tell where buses are at any specific time, which means if a bus is off route, we can call up the bus driver and ask why that is, what's going on that they're off route. We can also, from a maintenance point of view, see when some large issues are going to be happening. We all know that sometimes you hear the noises that cause you to go to the mechanic, and sometimes it's the tow truck that causes you to go to the mechanic. There are sensors and the abilities with this GPS to say this hose is leaking. This is going on right now. You need to get this bus into the maintenance. We can then integrate that in with our maintenance software and have that for the bus mechanics to see. And not just the bus, but also the trucks. So there are advantages at every level, I believe, for these GPS that I do believe is worth the cost. Just from a management to maintenance standpoint alone would be very helpful. Because we do have great drivers, but despite their best effort, they can't see everything that's going on underneath the hood, and sometimes it's too late, and now we need to use that tow truck to get the buses back. Where with this GPS, we could have caught that early enough that saved us thousands of dollars on a repair.
Thank you. Steve, where are you in the evaluation process?
I just have a few questions that need to be answered and just solidify some pricing. But I feel confident that I can come to you in the next 2 weeks and ask for a vote from a company and at a very competitive rate.
Have you generated a comparison matrix for cost, feature, et cetera?
I have started a spreadsheet. I can share that with you once it's completed.
Great. And then we talked earlier that do all three of these integrate with the video system that we have?
They don't integrate with the video system. They integrate with our routing system.
Okay, so none of them, we would have to manually be able to connect GPS data to the video time data.
If we needed to, yeah.
Okay. And then, can you give us some feedback, and I don't want to put you on a spot now, but, how would this be different than a child and their cell phone and having Life 360 and a parent can see where their kid is?
I would say from that aspect, you could get some of the same details. Now, what you wouldn't is if, now the student can text, obviously, but I don't know if they'd give the most accurate information, and we can give more accurate information because we can push out to all the parents of the kids on that specific bus. So while the GPS may be a push, I think we can give them more accurate information that they may receive from students themselves. The other two pieces, what I would think counterbalance what you're saying, the management piece and also the security and ability for drivers to have all of their actions and their routing be recorded so it's against any kind of complaints that we would hear. So.
And then just out of curiosity, how often in a year are we towing a bus?
Since I've been here, less than one.
Okay.
What's the funding source? Where are we gonna be paying for this if this happens? Is it coming out of?
I would recommend it comes out with permanent improvement. And again, I believe the cost would be offset by the fact that we're not purchasing buses at such a large clip compared to what we were before. I feel like we can dip into that well again, not just get the cameras, but also the GPS.
So will you send us the matrix on, all three companies?
Yes, I can
Okay.
update that to you. and
Appreciate
have that
it. Thank
included.
Yeah, the other data point I'd be interested in is of the three companies, who do we have that are peers that are using it? Other, nearby districts.
Yep, I can give that to you as well.
Right.
Any other information the board would need between now and our next meeting? We've got the matrix, we've got the other districts that are using it. Any other information sources prior to the meeting, so you can have that to consider your decision?
No, just his recommendation.
And
And
final,
what-
yeah.
what do you base it on, so that we could have it in advance?
Okay.
Hey, we appreciate the initiative.
Thank
Good
you.
on you and your folks. Somewhere down the road, I'd be interested in the additional expense for cameras on the outside of the bus.
Okay.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Moving on, under curriculum, we do have two items for your consideration. The first one is to enter into agreement with Baldwin Wallace for student teachers to be approved for the, working in the school district under Exhibit A, and then placement of those student teachers for internship and student teacher placements under number 2. We have placements all at the high school. This summer, I met with Baldwin Wallace, and then the high school administration met with Baldwin Wallace to look at a new initiative that they're doing for student teachers. It really looks at, it's mutually beneficial to both the student teachers and the district, and they wanted to start at the high school, so we were able to make that partnership a reality, and appreciate the high school administration for working with them to do that. So those are the student teachers that'll be working with us in a variety of capacities in the fall. Any questions on curriculum? Under student services, we have two items. The first is for Kids Link. Be it resolved, the recommendation that the Board of Education enters into a contract with Kids Link School for placement of a student with disabilities for the 1920 school year at a cost of $81,150 as found in Exhibit B. And then number 2, with the McKeon Education Group, those funds come from our IDEA B federal grant. Be resolved the recommendation that we enter into agreement with the McKeon Education Group in the amount of $33,756 for one part-time intervention specialist to service students with disabilities at St. Joseph and John Interparochial School, as listed in Exhibit C. Any questions on student services?
Only that the McKeon comes out of the grant, right? That's just pass-through money.
Correct.
Goes
Correct.
through us,
It's,
correct?
it's out of the federal grant, and a portion of that is allocated to St. Joseph and John's by the state, so
Perfect.
that's fulfilling their allocated amount.
Okay.
Nope. And then with that, we have Jenny Pelko, Assistant Superintendent with the Human Resource Report. Jenny?
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. Good evening. Under Human Resources, I have the following items for your consideration this evening. Under D1, changes in salary for certificated staff, their educational upgrades. And under D2, we have our stipends for our resident educator mentors. And that concludes my report.
I have a question on
Sure.
D1, and maybe George, you can answer this. Was there any net impact to our budget because of the upgrades to teacher salaries?
So these teachers here are new. And then when we hire the new teachers, they bring them on at a BA 0 until the transcripts are received. So from the BA 0 to wherever they're placed now, there is going to be an impact. But overall, throughout the summer, we had personnel leaving and then additional personnel coming. I'm in the process right now of putting the budget together. So the net impact I don't have yet. I should have it by next board meeting when I'm presenting the budget. But overall, it should be, I'm just ballparking, but it should be roughly about the same, maybe
A
under.
wash?
A wash or maybe under, because we have a lot of less experienced staff than the ones that left.
Well, I know you
And,
budgeted BA 3 or whatever Jenny told me, so I just noticed there was several that went up to master's degree plus.
Right.
So, thank you.
Any other questions? That concludes my report for this meeting.
Thank you, Cameron. That brings us to the consent calendar. All items with an asterisk are approved in a single vote. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Duke. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jane. Any discussion on consent calendar items? George, take roll.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Mr. Grozan?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. That brings us to Board of Education or other.
I have one, if I could ask Laura Hausman to come up to the podium. They had a PTA meeting today. Jane and I weren't able to attend, but if, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Just two things to let the board know and our viewers. There were two announcements at the council meeting today. Our high school cheerleaders this Saturday are doing a clothing drive from 9 to 11 in the high school parking lot, and they will get funds back from the company that's taking clothing, shoes, bedding, towels, accessories, electrical items, toys, games, and knickknacks. So it's a great way to go out and support our cheerleaders. And second, our music boosters are doing their annual mattress sale, and they will also be in the parking lot of the high school from 10 to 5 this Saturday. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Duke?
Yeah, the VFW is having Community Day on Saturday the 7th, 1 to 5. It's open to the entire community, and it's a good opportunity. There'll be first responders out there, probably some military equipment for the kids to crawl on. And I believe there's free food, and you can have a good time. There's a band there, too. So it's a good time for all, and a good chance to get to know your local VFW.
Excellent. Richard?
Just a reminder, Monday, 6 to 8, I think it is the Strongsville Women's League is sponsoring a candidates information night at the rec center.
Jane?
Friday the 13th is our first home football game, and it's the community tailgate party. So I hope everyone can show up. It'll be a lot of fun for the families, and then root on our football team and listen to our fabulous band.
Excellent. We have no need for executive session. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Duke. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jane. Any discussion? George, take roll.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Mr. Grozan?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned at 7:22.
New record.
New record. Let's keep them rolling.